What is going on, everybody? We are back once again with another edition of Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast. It is Saturday, October the 19th, believe it or not. I'm nursing a bit of a cold here because it's fall, I guess, officially. That's neither here nor there, and it's no fun. But we had something that was fun last night, which was SmackDown. We're going to break it down all afternoon here. I've got an original crew, an original recipe crew hanging with me this afternoon, evening, morning, depends on where you are. First and foremost, I'm going to send this one out to Philadelphia to our head of opinions, and that's Anthony Ricciardi. What's good, Anthony?
I feel almost privileged that I am participating in Clark's version of Michael Jordan's flu game. That I feel like I'm a teammate on the Bulls team here. But get well, Clark. But it was a interesting SmackDown, a lot of really cool moments, and we're going to get into the meat of the best of them.
Absolutely. I cannot wait to get into it myself, but we can't get started without also head of reviewing. We've got all kinds of department heads on today's show. North of the border in Regina, Canada, our good friend, Coby Galenzoski. What is good, Cobe?
Of course, everything is good. It is a week of wrestling that was enjoyable from throughout the week. And of course, SmackDown probably was the best show overall, with great enjoyable tag matches, enjoyable moments, and just a great story told. With everything else, I thought it was everything else was enjoyable from last night's SmackDown. And of course, I was going to make a comment from Clark referring to us as a bit of a recipe. I don't think I've ever been called a part of a recipe before. But regardless, it's always a joy to be here on the WR Daily to talk wrestling, which is always a fun experience and a fun time to be here.
Absolutely. And I'm with you. We got a comment over already on Instagram from Lord Virus of Nurgle, which just says Clark, and he's a great friend of the show. But I gotta say, I'm pretty confident that this infection is bacterial and not viral. But if it's viral, is that not your fault, Lord Virus? Shouldn't you be in control of all of this? Help me out here, man. I woke up in the middle of the night, sweaty like I ran a marathon.
Clark, that's definitely definitely a new way to send you hate mail.
Yeah, no, gotta love Lord Virus of Nurgle, though. He is a great friend of the show. So yes. But let's talk about the Motor City Machine Guns. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I'm a Chicago guy. We don't love Detroit so much. Mm-hmm. The more you think about it, the more you realize it's just not the deal. But we've got the debut. We've got also the number one contenders deal. Mm-hmm. Staying in the Midwest, that's what's wild to me. We've got the Cleveland connection out there in Ohio with DIY picking up the victory and the Machine Guns debut. Mm-hmm. MCMG is one of those teams, the Motor City Machine Guns. We all know how good they are if you're a TNA fan, if you're an Impact fan at all. Mm-hmm. We all know how good they are. Cannot wait to see them in the WWE. As much as I like the joke about disliking Detroit, I don't have anything negative to say about these two as a team. I really don't. Beyond that, I'm not a big Detroit guy. And our thick pizza is better than theirs. But outside of that, so good to see them. DIY, I think it reinvigorates them as far as their future in the tag division because it's a logical team to face often. DIY and the Motor City Machine Guns were built for each other. I want to get your thoughts, though, on the debut, Anthony. Obviously, you're a huge TNA fan.
Yeah.
And not only just that, but also DIY new number one contenders, the future of the tag division. I've complained about tag wrestling for so long. Is this now the start of a wave of really high quality tag team wrestling.
Yeah, the Motor City Machine Guns are a team that I've been following their entire TNA run for 20 years. They have been probably, other than the Briscoe brothers, the best tag team in the business that were not in WWE. And that's not a shot at the Young Bucks, but when people talk about the great tag teams of the 2000s and people go, oh, it was the Bucks. To me, my money was always on the Motor City Machine Guns because they were the most innovative tag team in the business. Every match was different. I mean, they had their signature moves, but like I felt when you watch a Motor City Machine Guns match, everything was different. It made sense. 99% of the time, everything they did made sense. The Bucks, for most part, I feel like if you've seen one, you've seen most of their matches. And this isn't a burial of them, but the Motor City Machine Guns are probably one of the most decorated tag teams, obviously the most decorated in TNA history. They held tag titles in TNA, Ring of Honor, New Japan. They've held them everywhere. So WWE was the next logical step. But at this point, at their age, nobody thought that was possible. We kind of felt, okay, that ship has sailed. It's a disappointment that they weren't going to get this. But to see them on TV for the first time, and, obviously the theme music changed. They didn't get their TNA theme, which I think was a mistake. I think they should have. I don't hate their new theme. For the first time in 20 years, they got pyro, which is, that's an achievement in itself. But yeah,
fireworks, let's go.
They are going to revitalize the tag division, especially on SmackDown. You have teams like Street Profits, you have DIY, you have them. Those three could be their foundation to build the tag division like the Dudleys, Hardys, and Edge and Christian were in the early 2000s, late 90s. As far as the tag match, I loved it because, you added a bit of controversy in there that the Street Profits pinned somebody at the same time DIY did, and DIY got the win. That gives motivation for the Street Profits to turn heel if they wanted to go that direction. And with, like I said, with those three teams especially, and then you also have Pretty Deadly in there, and you have others as well. SmackDown's tag division has a very bright future. Raw, not so much. There's not much there. So Raw is the next one that they're going to have to build. But everything takes time. Hunter's rebuilding every division piece by piece. So the future is very bright in WWE for tag team.
I am with you. And remember, you're looking at three guys that were at WrestleMania Night 1, WrestleMania 39, where the tag division main evented a WrestleMania. And it was awesome.
Yep.
We've got a few comments here. One in which I think Coby could for sure answer because I was under the impression it is just Wrestling Republic, but WVB.STVR asked, what is the TikTok for us? That is at Wrestling Republic, correct?
I can quickly check, and I do believe.
Yeah, if he's going to throw us the follow, like we should know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's important. Thank you for tuning in. Always. But while you're looking it up, we've got Ultimate Mason Brand said, I wish the tag team division would be given a main event spotlight, more tag teams in it, and have stuff going on for those in it. Yeah,
it is just at Wrestling Republic.
It's at Wrestling Republic.
It's just at Wrestling Republic.
But yeah, Ultimate Mason Brand's comment sort of, lends into the conversation we're already having, which is that, he wants to see more out of the tag division. I've been preaching that for a long time, my friend. I could not be in agreement more. Even Lord Virus of Nurgle, speaking of friends of the show, said I agree, but hopefully we'll see what happens next. Yeah, I mean, that's the deal with me, and I love this too. For DC World, I'm not the big Detroit guy either because I can't choose between them because I love MCMG and DIY. Hey, it's Detroit or Cleveland, and they're both,
That match is an absolute dream match, though. By the way,
it is.
The DIY is going to be.
It's amazing, and I do think that's what it's built towards. Just I got to get in my Chicago jabs where I can. Coby, obviously, as our head reviewer, you've got opinions on this, and we know you're a big Gargano and DIY fan in general. What's your opinion on this dream match in the scenario that we're kind of building towards here?
I'm ultimately very excited for this, and I think there's, like you said, this is the weird position we're in, where pretty much SmackDown's the best tag team division in all of wrestling right now. And I mean, I'm picturing that. We all know what the meme is, but I'm picturing the Dragons heads. And you got the serious one is SmackDown. You got NXT looking at the Dance Dragon and the Dance Dragons Monday Night Raw. Like it is night and day comparison, and the weirdest part is we have a tag division with the top of it being Tonga Loa and Tama Tonga. Which, I mean, the Girls of Destiny are tremendous. I mean, the ladder match was class, probably the best ladder match of the year, I think. But that's the thing is, I'm excited. I don't know how. The weirdest part is I don't know where the tag titles go, because I don't know if they are still on the bloodline until WrestleMania. If we go Tama and Tonga versus Jimmy and Jay, like I don't. It feels like, okay, this division doesn't have to have the bloodline's fingerprints in it. And I think that's the weird part of it. Like, of course, I'm interested and invested and to see Motor City Machine Guns versus DIY in Brooklyn, where we know the past of NXT takeovers in Brooklyn, where there were magical moments in tag team wrestling. One of the, at the time, the Revival versus DIY, one of the original matches on those Brooklyn takeovers was that tag match, and to have DIY come back in there, it's just going to be a great moment. It was like the Money in the Bank in Toronto where they won the tag titles. They visited a place where DIY had a rich history, and it was very much appreciated at that point. And I don't want to say I'm expecting that next week, but I think that's the interesting part, is because DIY need this win more than anyone. But I do not know if I see Motor City Machine Guns losing at this point in time. Like, I think that's the interesting part. I do think the Profits, DIY, and Pretty Deadly had the better match. I think there was a handful of timing issues in the Machine Guns versus Los Garza versus 8 Down Under. But like, that's the thing. They are working with people they have probably never worked with. So I don't want to say it's expected, but the not the rust, but the chemistry wasn't as developed. Like,
I think that's
compared to
fair
what we've
too.
seen with Straight Profits and DIY and Pretty Deadly almost.
I think that's fair too. And I think it's interesting because coming out of last night, I do feel like the narrative is very much that we're getting DIY and Motor City Machine Guns. The Profits are kind of waiting in the wings. And it was interesting to me because I also feel like the Profits, when faced against, whether it be Eminem back in the day and like teams like that, or the Usos or whoever it may be, it made the Profits a bigger deal, and the Profits made themselves a bigger deal. They do seem like the odd ones left out of this equation because of the nature of DIY and Motor City Machine Guns. And there's a lot of history outside of the on-screen product between the two teams we're talking about. But I do wonder where the Profits stand in this whole equation.
I do want to mention one thing, because Coby mentioned something about timing with the Motor City Machine Guns. There is something that AJ Styles said when he when he debuted in WWE. He goes, it did take a learning curve to learn where the cameras are, where the cues were. Like, these are things that like nowhere else in wrestling has this.
Hard camera.
You know what I mean? Like, there was resentment about him possibly going to NXT first. And he said in hindsight, he kind of wish he did, because he would have been able to learn the different pieces. So for DIY, that might be a part of it. New people they're facing, they're going to be fine, though. They've been in this business 20 years. They're one of the best teams to ever do it. So they'll be fine, and the tag division will be in great hands with this. And you could to me, I wouldn't have put the belts on the Bloodline. I would have given them the DIY or the Street Profits and kind of just ran with them, because they don't really need the tag titles. So whether they get them, I think they can get them all for them at some point.
We could honestly continue discussing this, and this comment is great and lends to more discussion, but I'm just going to read it and then let's move on to the next topic. But I got to give Ultimate Mason Brand credit for this one over on Instagram. He said, I think I've got DIY versus Motor City Machine Guns, number one contenders. It's kind of a tie scenario. And then it's them and the Bloodline and the Profits in a fatal 4-way tag ladder match at the Rumble.
I don't think they would drag it out that long. I don't think they would drag it to the Rumble.
I do think that's a long time, but he's got the Motor City Machine Guns winning that one at the Rumble in the ladder match.
I can see
that's interesting, to say the least.
I could see Crown
I think it would ultimately be fun, but because that's the thing, even if I'm looking at that sense, keep in mind we're at a point where to get on a PLE, you got to be in the right spot.
Right.
But a tag title match on there would be a different move, a shocking move. I'd be all for it if the moment was right, but it does seem a little far-fetched knowing you got 2 Rumbles and probably
there's only
a world
3
title,
slots.
a couple world. Well, there's only they did 4 this year. The 2 Rumbles, LA Knight and Kevin, and then the Roman 4-way. Or no, Kevin and Logan. Kevin and Logan, and then the Roman 4-way. Like they did 4 matches. Like I don't know if I see the tag titles being 1 of 4 or 1 of 5. That'd be my kind of insight if I'm looking that far ahead.
Very interesting, but let's move on to a women's match. And every Tuesday night, I've talked about Metaphor for the length of their run. Lash Legend is so dang good, and her athletic background lends to her being an absolute star. On the microphone, she's never, ever not delivered in my eyes. And that's something that a lot of people who haven't been consistently watching NXT wouldn't necessarily notice. Lash hasn't had a ton of microphone spots, but that might be her greatest skill. And she's a former professional athlete, so let's not forget that. I mean that as a compliment, not that she can talk and not act upon it. She's a former professional athlete that's that good on the microphone. She goes out against Pipper Niven, in the words of our good friend Ben Allison, and gets the victory and does it pretty swiftly. I'm not saying Taylor Swiftly, but pretty swiftly. I'm just saying it wasn't that long of a match. Lash is a star in my eyes. What's interesting though is I thought, speaking of tag team divisions, that was the future for Lash, given her encounters of late with 2 women of the caliber of Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. So I'm not entirely sure if this isn't a test sample as far as maybe Lash Legend is a future single star. I want to get your thoughts on that, Anthony, more importantly than the match, because I thought she delivered given the time that was there. Piper Niven can go. We both know that. She did her job in those 5 minutes, as we mentioned pre-show. I'm not totally sure if single star isn't the future for Lash after last night.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Lash Legend is somebody that's very athletic. She could talk on the mic. She could walk the walk, talk the talk. She could do all those things. It's a difficult spot in WWE because they've tried with this women's tag division. It really hasn't materialized much. So they need to make a decision whether they want to go full steam ahead with this thing and actually put effort in it and have teams and kind of build it and kind of really do stuff. Or if you're going to branch people out. I think Lash Legend definitely probably has single star in her. I think, I don't know if it was Shawn Michaels, one of them said years ago, they went, when you go into this business, you don't dream of being a tag team. You dream to be a single star. And I think that's, probably her ultimate direction. And I think they're testing the waters with her with this, putting her in there, having her have a dominant win over Piper Niven, somebody that's obviously bigger than her, stronger than her. It's a nice showcase match, but I don't know if they know exactly whether they're going to push her in the tag right now or they want to branch her off. This is kind of one of those prime examples of, okay, do you want to do secondary titles? Because I that's their big thing now, where it's like you have all this talent, where are you going to put it? Like that's their biggest problem that they have right now, is that they have all this tremendous talent, but like you can't just give everyone a participation trophy and you can't just feature everybody either. So it's kind of this difficult balancing act that they got to do. But yeah, I thought Lash looked great. Piper Niven knows how to put people over. I don't know if they're ever going to build Piper like they do Nia in like that dominant role, but
I would agree.
But you know, I think they are not pursuing that, but she knows how to get people over.
I'm with you 100% on that one. And we got a comment over on Instagram that I do want to read. I don't normally do this, but Jacob O3 Schwartz said 5 viewers, by the way. And I just wanted to let you know it's 5 more than your live show that's happening right now. Either way, all I'm saying is Lash legend, future star, no doubt about it. Let's pay some bills really quickly, though. Let's talk about, you guys are wrestling fans. If you're tuned in, guys, girls, everyone around here, if you're tuned in and you're watching this show and you're a wrestling fan and you haven't checked out Demand Progress Plus, what are you doing? What are you doing? This is one of the best libraries on the entire internet. Use the code WatchProgress1. You're going to get 50% off your first month on Demand Progress Plus. You're getting Progress, Defy, and multiple other promotions. There are so many reasons to sign up for this, not excluding that you're going to get half off of your first month just by watching our show. Check out Demand Progress Plus. Use that code WatchProgress1 and sign up. There's no reason. You're going to get live shows, a library with all your favorites. You want to figure out where they came from before they ended up where they are right now. You've got an entire library full of it over at Demand Progress Plus. Check it out. Thank you so much for our friends over at Progress Wrestling. But let's get right back into the show and let's talk about, speaking of wrestling, last night, Candice LeRae comes to the aid of Nia Jax. Excuse me? Huh? Who had that on their bingo card? Kobe, I'm just going to go with that. Did you have that on your bingo card?
No. And I think that's what makes this interesting. And this is what makes this something to talk about, is we're sitting here and we know she just won the speed title. And they've not really went, they haven't used the title as a prop on television. They haven't gone, put the belt on them for the visual. They'll mention it. You'll have Michael Cole say during an entrance, yeah, he's the reigning speed title about Andrade. And I mean, obviously they haven't had the chance to do too much with Candice. She won it last week. And now I found it very interesting that this is the way they went. Is, well, Tiffy had some sniffles, but like she's got out.
Sniffies and sniffles are different.
But I mean, Candice LeRae gets the win over Bayley, I think is the biggest chunk, and you can see the shock on Nia Jax. And I don't know if Nia Jax is relatively happy about it. But to be fair, Candice LeRae kept her promise. And I think my question is I just don't know where this goes. Because I don't know where getting a win where pinning Bayley takes Candice LeRae. She's the speed champion, and she's not beating Nia Jax anytime soon. So I mean, if I'm thinking in the far game, I don't know where they're going. But like, I think that it was an interesting moment. You had Nia Jax kind of with the shocked reaction. And overall, Naomi looked really good against Nia Jax in the match. She's definitely the next challenger outside of this Crown Jewel title that we don't get to bury today, sadly enough. But I found it as an interesting thing, and it was a shock. It was a bit of shock value to see Candice LeRae pin Bayley, and it was a good shock value because Candice really hasn't gotten much of an opportunity since coming back.
I'm with you.
She kind of is now because she's kind of building that speed title around her.
My initial instinct,
she's
Kobe,
trusted.
to your point, and I think you broke that down pretty dang perfectly. My initial instinct was like, where's this been with Candace?
Mhm.
Like, this is what we needed long ago,
Can I
right?
tell you?
Like,
Can I tell you the one thing I popped for was Nia on the phone with Tiffany and her yelling at her and then going, "Well, the match is off," and then not. Nick Aldis is like, "No, it's not. Shut up, Tiffy." And then she just went. He's like, "We got an entire division of women that could be your tag partner." I thought that was a great segment.
I did dig that. We've also
Mhm.
got Kafkaske in the chat, as always, friend of the show. Hey, y'all, what's going on? And then he said, Candace will be brilliant in the title picture.
Mhm.
I'm with him.
Yeah.
I just, it's taken longer than I think I expected.
Mhm.
Bobby Petito with hello, guys. What's up, Bobby B? Of course, as always. Speaking of friends of the show, I feel like I keep repeating the same thing, but, we got a lot of friends out here. Let's move on to our main event, though, because I understand that it's early. But this is something we could probably discuss for the rest of the afternoon. And I'm weathering the storm as far as, little stuffy nose and whatnot. So that's why I had to pause there, because did not want to sniffle into the microphone. But let's talk about the Bloodline storyline, the biggest storyline going in pro wrestling right now. And it still is. And it has been for a long time, whether we've been critical of it at times or over the top praising it. It continues to deliver weirdly over and over and over again. There are so many stories to be told in this spider web. You have Jay and Jimmy brothers not getting along. You got Jay and Jimmy both being Solo's older brother and not getting along because he's in a leadership role. You've also got their cousin they looked up to like an older brother, Roman Reigns, kind of extricated from a logical leadership role, and everything else at play. Dang, did I love this stuff. Dang, is this so much fun. This is what makes Friday nights a blast. Yeet, no yeet is a factor at some point, right? Jay, Jimmy, all of that. Jay Solo, Jimmy Solo, Roman Solo. Then let's bring God and the Tongans all in to the equation. It really doesn't get old. I loved what they did last night, and they didn't necessarily move the needle as far as I expected, but they didn't have to, because every second of that closing segment was entertaining. They didn't need to move the needle further than it needed to be moved. They gave us as much as we needed last night, and I really appreciated that. It's a lost art in pro wrestling, because this storyline didn't advance like crazy, but it felt like it did. It felt like it did every second that they were all on screen. Whether it was the backstage segments or what played out at the end of the show. Kobe, obviously, as our head reviewer, I'm going to start with you here. What were your thoughts on it? I mean, when it comes to promo type segments, this is one in our rating system is difficult. But I have a hard time not throwing those stars up. No spoilers. Go read the article. But as our head reviewer, it was good, right?
Absolutely, and I think that's where I said about the SmackDown is it started strong, because I don't think anyone expected Jey Uso to appear. Yet Jey Uso showed up. You could tell he was having a blast. He was out of breath for the entire promo because he was just enjoying his yeeting. And I mean, it seems like a blast to be in that. I don't want to say a mosh pit, but like just to be in the waves, it's got to be a blast, and it's got to be something that is just something that you can't replicate. The biggest thing is there's a lot more storytelling coming out of this show that I thought we were going to get, because I didn't think Jay would have came this soon. I wasn't under the impression that Jay would show up on his own merit to talk to his little bro about this. And I think there's a major theme here, and that's Jey Uso going. You're like, yes, I have issues with Roman Reigns, but you're trying to divide the family, and I think that's almost the big thing that we're seeing here is we're seeing Solo bringing in outsiders. He brought in the Tongans. He brought in Jacob Fatu, which they are very much going, Jacob Fatu's a bad man. Why'd you bring him here? This guy's dangerous. Why is he here? And I love that, because that puts so much importance and so much value to Jacob Fatu that I don't want to say almost is going to succeed and surpass Solo Sikoa in years, but it very much can. Like, I'm in the position where Jacob Fatu can over deliver and can be that next mega star out of this family. And then Roman Reigns saying, I need to fix this, it shows you that he knows this is weird. He doesn't believe that this is a better bloodline or a stronger bloodline, because he can see the division and he can see the fact that there is so much tension, and there is.
So this is really interesting.
But I don't know where
I'm
they're
going to read
going.
some comments, Cobe. But seriously, like the three of us, let's talk about this for a second, because like I love the line you just said, and repeat it one more time on this is right. Like, this isn't a stronger bloodline, but are they not all part of the same bloodline? Think about that family tree that they posted at Mania. Is it not the line that gets delivered here down the road where Roman goes, you have divided the bloodline, which should be the strongest entity in wrestling? That's why that's my motivation. That's why I'm here to do what I'm doing. And I not that simply, of course, right? In a much more clever way, deliver a line to emphasize that, because it is important. They're all still 3 years ago, if everyone debuts inside of the world that we've been watching on WWE, they all fall under Roman Reigns, the tribal chief. They do. Right? If the timing is different, that's the case. And I would love to hear that told. We've got a ton of comments to run through, and then Anthony, I'm going to go to you really quickly. Okay. He said that Jacob and JT's loved. Kobe, you brought that up. Making the werewolf scary as could be. I love. He also mentioned, though, Kafkaske, friend of the show, Jay isn't losing that IC title on Monday, though. It's interesting, and I don't know if they're totally connected. The other one, Bobby Petito added, I'm interested to see if Solo Sikoa shows up on Raw during that Intercontinental title match. That would be fascinating. And then we've got Jimmy will save Jay from the bloodline from Kafkaske. I don't know about that. Which bloodline does he save him from? I think it's time to let Jimmy shine for a bit. I don't necessarily need to see the reunion right away, unless it's entirely impactful. Now, obviously, Anthony, I got to ask you about the entire bloodline storyline here. And more importantly to me, this is where it gets funky. I feel like you were at WrestleMania 40. You saw the Usos wrestle, right? I'm wondering if there was something in that match that you saw, or if you felt like that match was underwhelming. I think we're having mic issues. I'm so sorry. Yeah. It may be a plug problem for now. Let me and Kobe talk about. Why don't you exit the studio really quickly and then just are you good? Yeah, you're good.
Okay. All right. So when I look at this, I loved the opening with Jay coming in unexpectedly. When you talk about WrestleMania weekend, what I witnessed, and one of the things I don't think I've talked about before, was the whole Raw after Mania. When I was witnessing that crowd yeet, to me, that was a moment where I'm like, this guy he has something bright, a really bright future with this whole thing. So I think, you could see that in him. And it's something that came off of the bloodline, obviously. I I was a little surprised that they brought him in as soon as they did. But considering the fact we're 6 weeks out from Survivor Series, and presumably they are going bloodline against bloodline, and it also makes sense because Roman's probably not going to be there every week. So there's a limited number of space there. So if they take out Roman, they take out Jimmy, okay, then Jay's a target for a while. Does Sammy come down to help him? Is that how Sammy gets pulled in? There's a number of avenues they can go with this. When I look at the Solo Sikoa run bloodline, I've said this before, I don't think Solo's the guy. When I look at it, it's not believable to me that Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga will be taking orders from him. I think what Jay pointed out was these ones are out of control. These are the relatives of the family that, yeah, we love them because they're family, but they're dangerous. And in a lot of ways, I feel like it's the equivalent of like somebody that you occasionally you'll see like on the news or something where it's like, oh, they had a pet tiger. And the tiger went like, you think you're in control until the tiger goes off. And to me, that's what Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga are.
To your point,
he thinks he's in control, but he really ain't.
It's a little like everybody's got a crazy uncle or a crazy cousin. That's Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga.
They are the black sheeps of the family. We love them. We'll defend them against anybody else, but we all know they're crazy.
Okay.
And I feel like that's the position you're in.
I will say the Yeet Masters _final boss over on Instagram said Solo is not a real bloodline. Jey Uso is a real guy. And I'm like, here, look, Solo is the Usos' younger brother. That's a fact. Like that's pretty undeniable, right? Like that is, that's on, you can Google it. That's right on all their Wikipedias. And like at the end of the day, I actually kind of dig it. He's the younger, older brother in the sense of he's the bigger guy of the three brothers when it comes to the Usos and Solo, who are directly related in that way, like cousins on the rest of the way. It's interesting. I don't know. We have Pizza 69 guy with bloodline drama that's developing way too slow. I'm watching wrestling 50 plus years. I don't think that's the case. I would actually strongly disagree with that. I think the drama has developed pretty perfectly because think about it. We told a 40-year story with Cody Rhodes that involved the bloodline, and it didn't truly take the steam out of the group. And the storyline started during the pandemic with no fans watching live. So you had no live reaction, which makes it very unique for a storyline start in hindsight. That's not something you see often, right? There's no direct feedback
never seen that.
in the building for the start of this storyline, right? When Roman Reigns wrecked everyone and Lee left, and then the next week showed up sitting next to Paul Heyman, there was no crowd interaction outside of, some Zoom faces and whatnot.
That was a great line too by Roman last night when he said to Jimmy, he went, the wise man would have solved this already.
Yes.
Which I thought was a great line.
I loved that was included. By the way, I was going to ask about that, Anthony, too, just because I think that is kind of the key. We have Fahey WM with what does The Rock do now? And I think he's as big of a part of this storyline as anybody else.
The Rock does whatever The Rock wants to do.
The Rock, I think The Rock is playing an entirely different game than the rest of them. And I think that's what's so interesting about the Bloodline is the name of the faction, but it's already fractured right now. And it can only get more interesting from here when it comes to The Rock's role in this. Everyone's role in this. This is family infighting from a narrative standpoint. How do you
when you look at it, one last thing, when you look at the Bloodline and it all the main one is Chief Maivia. When you look at it, The Rock is the heir apparent. He is the grandson of the High Chief. There's nobody closer to that top of the mountain than him.
Yes. And we've also got Pizza 69 guy, and we appreciate you commenting, and I'm glad you tuned in. Absolutely. But he said WrestleMania 41 is a triple threat match between Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, and The Rock. You guys know that, don't you? And here's what I would say is that if you've seen Star Wars, only a Sith lives their life in absolutes, because that's pending injuries, movie schedules, and a number of other things. There are no guarantees here that by the time we get to 41, that's the case. Does it look like that's potentially the case? Absolutely. Yes, it looks like that is going to be the move. And I think it makes a ton of sense. Except that I don't know. We've got one-on-one matchups with all three that we can play the carousel on in a way that I do think can be equally as positive as putting those three biggest names in one match. I think that's a little bit like, from a promotional standpoint, blowing your wad, for lack of a better way to put it.
It's
because you've got Cody Rock, you've got Cody Roman 3, you've got Rock Roman 1. That's the one.
It's a totally enviable position because WWE can go three different ways and they'd all be successful.
By the way, I love that Pizza Guy added that he doesn't want to come in here sounding like a know-it-all. No worries, bro. No, we appreciate you absolutely commenting on the show, and I love it. He says, but I've got a lot of information. I'm all over the place. I have friends in Indianapolis. He's in Staten Island. That's great. That's awesome. Fahi WM is from India. Love that. His best friend's an exterminator at WWE headquarters. That's awesome. Hey, no rodents. Let's do it. But either way, yeah, I'm excited for the Bloodline storyline. I think it's going to pay off in ways that we can't exactly predict. I'm sure somebody has, but there's such a large spider web when it comes to this storyline of things that you can discuss that, and that you got the J Jimmy dynamic. You've got the Roman J Jimmy dynamic. You've got the Solo part of it. You have The Rock. There are so many options here that I think it's as unpredictable as could be. And a lot of that had to do with weathering the storm. At the time, I didn't necessarily love it. But the reason that we're in the position we are is because they weathered the storm during storytelling periods that were difficult. Roman Reigns being away, Jey Uso being on a different show, Jimmy Uso being out. They weathered that storm and continued to keep it relevant. And I think hindsight's always 20/20, but you got to give credit where it's due when it comes to that. But with that does bring us to the end of today's show. It's been an absolute blast. Thank you, everyone that tuned in. I apologize. My voice is buggy. I'm a little under the weather. But guess who's not under the weather? That's Anthony and Kobe on behalf of us three here at Wrestling Republic. Thank you so much. If you haven't smashed like and subscribe, we really appreciate it. It means the world to us. Please do tune in tomorrow. Same place, same time. That's noon Pacific. That's going to be 3 over on the East Coast. That's 8 o'clock in the UK. And that's, of course, 9 a.m. for my friends in Hawaii. Have an excellent Saturday. Have some fun. I apologize. We do have to leave. I see the comments over there. You guys are still... Check us back out next week. Check out Sunday Night Spotlight. Check out all our other shows sold separately. We've got Take It to the Table. We've got all kinds of great stuff. Check out Coby Galenzoski's reviews. He's one of the best in the business. Thank you so much and have a great Saturday once again. We'll talk to you all soon.